Welcome to Stephen King Saturday. Welcome back. It's been a while.
It's been a little
It's been a
while.
while. All right. So, after having watched Paranormal Activity, the next of kin, not the next of kin, next of kin. There's no the.
The next of kin.
We're going to watch The Cell. No, that is a Jennifer Lopez movie.
Yeah.
Highly recommended. Super cool film. This is Cell. So, ironically, after having watched Next of Kin, I found out that this was directed by the director of Paranormal Activity 2. Little connection there for this week. Not on purpose. Just is what it is. Was looking for a Stephen King film that wasn't 4 hours long that we haven't covered.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them. Most of the stuff left is either like TV shows or 3 to 4 hour movies. And fitting that into a week when we have limited time anyway is proving to be difficult. So I'm starting to knock out the things that I was dreading revisiting, which was Cell, which was a movie that I was really, really anticipating when it was first announced, because I am a massive fan of 1408. It might be my favorite Stephen King movie. I'm a massive, massive fan of it. I've watched it numerous times.
Yeah.
It is a comfort film for me, much like The Shining. There's a lot of Stephen King films that are pretty comforting to me, but there's something about 1408 that just really, really hits with me. Probably the father-daughter relationship. I don't know.
Probably.
But we got the return to a Stephen King project. John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson teaming up once again. Last time as Mike Insulin. And I had his name in my head for like 2 seconds and then it completely fell out of my head for some freaking reason. That's so funny. I had them both in my head and then I went to say it and then it fell out of my head.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. It's so annoying.
Olin. Jesus. Okay. So, put Olin on the phone. I'm going to blitz the son of a bitch. That's how I got that name out of my head. Anyway, so I hated this movie. I have a disdain for this film. It's one of the films that I really have ragged on as one of the worst Stephen King movies I've ever watched. And so I went back into this extremely hesitant. So I want to say this. I always think this is a super interesting fact, period. Expectations definitely alter perception. Yes. There's no doubt about this to me.
They do.
Right? Because I'm such a massive 1408 fan, I went into this excited and was wanting something on that level for me. And because of it, I came out of it hating it. And like always just had this blatant disregard for it. Like this movie's trash. Having went back and watched it with you, I really, really enjoyed the first 30 minutes. I actually genuinely think are honestly almost great. Like they're great. I was shocked by this. I was watching it. This is definitely one of the bigger turnarounds I've had. Not the biggest. That would be Session 9. Because that's like a masterpiece to me, and I hated it the first time I watched it. Yeah, so it's about as big of a turnaround as you can get. I definitely do not think this is a masterpiece by any means, but I quite enjoyed this time, which is shocking to me.
Yeah, it's really surprising. This was my first time watching it, and you like read some Facebook post or something that you made on it when we started about how it was like missing so much and just that you hated it. And it was crazy because I definitely did not have that feeling at all during this film. I thought it was actually, I think it's really good. I really enjoyed watching it. I love the concept. And of course, with Stephen King stuff, you're always like kind of curious, like how it compares to the book.
Sure.
But that obviously we haven't read the book, so I don't know if this is like a really
it's one of his most hated books. And he
Mm.
specifically, he worked on this screenplay, and because of fan backlash to his book, I don't know if this is the first time ever, but I'm pretty sure, I would assume it probably is, but for the first time ever, to my knowledge, Stephen King actually rewrote
Oh
the
wow.
ending for this movie specifically to like silence the haters of the
Mm.
book, and it's like one of his most hated movies.
Wow, that's interesting. I thought it was good. I liked it.
I
I don't
did
know,
too,
like I was
which
into it.
I'm someone who, like you, I'm sure 9 out of 10 people watching this are like, I watched it, it was trash. I honestly like, part of me is like, is this a different version? Is this a different cut of the movie? Because I don't remember it as well. It came out
Mm.
years ago now, and I definitely remember some scenes pretty well from it. Everything feels kind of in line. The opening is 100%. Why I didn't like that opening before, I'm not sure, because I actually think it's pretty thrilling
Yeah,
and
I
scary.
definitely. It's really
And
scary.
there's a lot of like really creepy imagery
Mhm.
in this movie with the zombies. This is like a really
Yeah.
unique, interesting take on the zombie subgenre.
Yeah.
It does remind me a bit of the movie The Signal.
Mm.
But regardless, I am like, I'm not at a loss for words because I'm Jason and I never am at a loss for words. But I am kind of blown away by how much I actually enjoyed this. But that gets back to like, I was expecting so much out of it and ended up hating it. This time I expected to hate it and
Mm.
ended up really enjoying it. So it was like my expectations on either end of the spectrum completely altered my
Yeah.
experience while watching it.
Yeah.
And I really like, okay, do I still have things in here towards the end, especially that I feel that are rushed and that could have been fleshed out more? 100%. I think that this movie could have used another like 30 minutes at least to really flesh out the ending for me. I just feel like we do rush to him leaving them and then just driving over there and then kind of like doing the fake blow up and then he's in the crowd kind of thing. There needed to be more connection to the story of like who this guy in the red
Mm.
sweater is and what this whole thing is, and like his relationship with this kid and his relationship with the crew and that kid that they picked up. Like there is stuff there that isn't explored upon, and I know that if it's a Stephen King novel, it was, and
Mm.
I would have been fine with even just 15-20 more minutes. But that's a huge improvement over where I would have rather have not watched this at all the first time. And
Yeah.
now I'm asking for more movie, even though, yes, I said parts were missing last time. Back then, from my feelings towards it, I would tell you I wouldn't want to see any other minutes because I thought the movie was so disjointed and so bad that I like I am kind of
Yeah, I
shocked at how good I actually thought this was. I actually think this is a good movie, which
Oh,
is
I
kind of
do.
insane because I think this will be one of the most contested discussions we've had in a little while, because this movie is really hated. There's going to be a few people who are like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm a defender of this film. There will be a few of those, but I think most people will be like, okay, maybe I'll give it another rewatch, but I hated it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a really interesting take on the zombie subgenre. Um, and I honestly didn't feel like there was much stuff missing. I kind of like the ambiguity with like the guy in red, because we get a little bit of answers with like he's the character from, Cusac's book.
Yeah.
And like he's showing up in everyone's dreams and stuff, and like, so I like that there's that element of like supernatural. They mention like the end times, like the apocalypse and stuff. I like that that's there, but I'm fine with there not being anything like additional. And as far as like, I don't know if maybe you felt that it was disjointed because it's like they pick up different people,
Yeah.
and like, like right in the beginning they start off with like DJ whatever his
Yeah.
name is, and you think he's going to be with them for a while, and he dies like immediately.
which is great.
And same thing, like not immediately, but then we also get the death of the girl
Yeah.
that's with them, which is
Esther from
really,
Orphan,
yeah, Esther,
Isabel Furman.
which is a super sad death.
Super
So
sad.
sad.
Super sad.
So I like that. I like that they're like kind of, because I feel like that's how, like, if you were in an apocalypse scenario, I feel like that's pretty true to life. Like, you would be
Yeah.
trying to make connections and then people would be dying around you, which would be
It's a sped up
horrific.
version of Walking Dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind any of that. I didn't feel like it was disjointed, and I just
I don't think it's
really,
disjointed.
yeah,
don't
I
think it's
just mean like
disjointed.
before you were saying
I
like
did.
initially, and I was like, maybe it's that, but I don't know what else, because I didn't really feel like there was a lot missing from the story. Like, I feel like we got enough of it. I mean, we don't really know like what's causing this, of course, but like that's fun to speculate about, and I don't really feel like we need a solid answer on it, because obviously I think that the overtone of the film is like the negative effects that cell phones are having on people, turning us into zombies, which is not a new concept at all, but like that's like the basis for everything. And yeah.
I don't have, on this watch, I don't really have any major gripes with the film. As I said, I don't want an outright explanation. I don't want some heavy exposition where they tap into something and some guy's explaining it on the airwaves, or like an alien comes down and like, this is what we're doing. I don't want that at all. I don't want an explanation. I just would have liked more time with these characters and with the apocalyptic scenario, and the guy in red, and him to be more of an antagonist towards them. But it's not absolutely necessary. I don't, I'm fine with the movie as is currently. I just think that it would be a better film if we could get more from it. But as is, I'm actually pretty fine with the film. Which, so yeah, that is really wild to me. I honestly am kind of shocked. I will say I don't know what connection this has exactly, but I will say that I do find it kind of interesting that Matthew Vaughn makes Kingsman the Secret Service. I think I showed you the first one, did I not? Okay. So in that movie, Sam Jackson plays the villain, something Valentine. It's been a little while since I've watched it. And his plan in that movie, the villainous scheme in the movie, is that through everyone's cell phone, he puts out this signal that makes them all aggressive, angry killers.
Yeah.
And they all, when they get the signal, they all turn on each other and start murdering each other.
Yeah.
Sam Jackson, cell phone signal, killer zombie type things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're not zombies, but they're just aggressive. They're like rage zombies with, without like a disease. It's just the signal, which is exactly what it is here. They're not diseased.
Right.
They're just picking up a signal that's making them crazed, which is exactly the same plot of another Samuel L. Jackson movie from a few years later.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Was that stolen from this?
Feels a little bit, but again, like, it's not, I feel like, a unique, I don't know when the first like representation in film or
but
television
to have Sam Jackson
been. But yeah, because
and to
it's
have
the
an almost
same
identical idea,
it's definitely borrowed a little bit, at least.
It would be surprising to me to find out that Matthew Vaughn has never even heard of this film.
Yeah, that would be weird.
And it's just
Samuel Jackson,
it's a super
never
coincidence.
Said, he was like,
Sam Jackson had to be on set and be like, I did a movie like this.
I wasn't the bad guy in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great concept, and I think it's actually a really scary, because like with zombies, there's obviously a few different like ways people become zombies, and typically it's through like some type of infection, which is, I think, maybe the most common one in like modern times. But I think that this is actually a really scary idea because like they say something about the brain being like a machine in this, which is a it's true.
Yeah.
Like we are like little meat machines.
Yeah.
And to think that, something that we use every day and we've become so reliant on could make us all turn against each other and hurt ourselves and hurt people we love,
I mean, isn't that what
and
it's
it kind
doing
of
right
does that,
now?
yeah,
Yeah.
but like to an exaggerated effect. Like it's freaky to think about. I really loved in this too that they, like you said, like there's some really cool imagery. First of all, the zombies look like terrifying, like them just like opening their mouths and like putting their heads back and like screeching. I hate that when
Yeah.
they're just moving as a flock all together. Like you remarked actually that it was kind of like The Last of Us, with that hive mind, which I really like with zombies. I think that's super cool. But then later on, when they meet those guys at like the camp, the dude who's like hasn't slept for 6 days, and they have that person held hostage, and he starts speaking in his son's voice.
So good.
That's scary because he's not the only one hearing that. Like they're hearing that too, and he like Sam Jackson's character is like, that's not your son, it's not your son, but like they're hearing it, like he's mimicking his voice. Unless you think that they're not hearing that, and
I
because it
wondered.
could, I guess it could be either way, but I took it as like, he's like really projecting his voice.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what to read that as. It could be one or the other. It could be that it was sending out a signal and he heard what he heard and they just heard screeching. But when he said,
Mm,
"That's my son," he's like, "That's not your son."
mm.
Right? So it's possible. I honestly don't know. I think the book would answer that
Yeah,
question.
I do too. Yeah, I do think like it makes me very curious about the book because while I'm fine with the ambiguity, like you said, I think that there's things that are probably answered in the book,
Yeah.
or at least expanded upon, which I would be interested in finding out like more about things. But I think that as a film, I think that this still works really well, and I honestly think that if there had been more time spent, I think it could have gotten a little convoluted, and lost some of the impact that it has, at least for me personally.
Yeah, I'm changing my tune big time. I'm gonna become a pretty major defender of this film. I think actually it is kind of an overlooked gem,
Yeah.
which is I'm gonna pinch myself if I can't believe I'm even saying these words. But the more we talk about it, the more I enjoy the concepts and the way that they're done here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the movie is also risky with like some of the people it kills off
Yeah.
and how they kill them off quickly and like emotionally. Um, and we also okay, a couple we get a Lloyd Kaufman cameo in here in the airport, which I thought was cool. When there's no service areas, they stop functioning. So
Mm-hmm.
somehow they're still being connected to. Like you don't just get connected. You don't just hear the signal and then you're stuck in it for good. You still have to be in like cell phone range,
Yeah.
which is an interesting concept. So they have to always be jacked in. They also get like rebooted every
Yeah.
night, and supposedly in the book or something, they are like progressively getting more and more advanced and
Mm.
evolving as they like reboot every night. Um, I like certain scenes of them like, you know, driving over all of them with gasoline and then burning them as they sleep and them getting up
Sure.
and running at them and Stacy Keach's character who yeah they do they meet new characters and they're killed very quickly and I
Yeah.
think for sure that's so um you know that doesn't go with the normal way that film is done right
No, like I
and
think yeah, a lot of audiences want to connect with the characters and like they don't want certain people to die, which of course. So it's
yeah.
risky, like you said.
Yeah, but I liked that. I liked
I
that.
did too.
Even though I don't think anyone thinks that Sam Jackson and Cusack are gonna die. Everyone else is up on
Yeah.
uh, the auction block there, and I don't know. I did quite like that. The um, I hated the sound mix in the tunnels. with the echo.
Yeah,
It was like
that
impossible
was
to
rough.
understand what they were saying. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell is this? But I guess it's realistic. I like how Esther is what I'll call her. I forget what her name is in the movie. She's great in this.
She is.
She's only 16 years old in this movie, which is wild.
She does a good
I
job.
guess she's always 30 years old in my mind, even when she's 12. But she had to kill her own mom.
Yeah.
And I love when she comes in. There's little subtle things in movies that I always just like. I think it's such a like a cute, like good, um, little detail. And like when he takes the knife out of her hand, she like has to keep flexing her hand because she was like gripping the knife so tight for so long. She
Yeah.
has this like hand cramp.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. I don't know. I always like those details, and I just thought I'd mention it here. So this isn't just like cobbled together and thrown together overnight. Like
No.
there's definitely thought being put in to this. Sam Jackson's character is a bit of a hypocrite, taking the smokes from her and then smoking it. But
Yeah.
I didn't realize at that time, honestly, she looked older to me. So I thought she was older. But I guess if she really is like 16, which she physically actually is, it makes sense that she's supposed to, I honestly do think it has to do with the fact that when I was first introduced to her as a 12-year-old, it was revealed that she was 30.
Yeah, so your
brain and so now my brain's like she's 30.
She's 30.
We get a little Patrick Hockstetter here from the It movies. So I don't know if this was his first role in a King thing, but I would assume it is, and he got another crack at it later on. And so Stacy Keach's character, who gets killed by the gas truck explosion, he seems to think that this is like the natural next step in our evolution, which there's actually a lot of speculation that's true of autism, that autism is supposed to be the next evolutionary step because we are using our physical bodies less and our brains much more. So like our DNA chains are starting to prioritize mental acuity and not as much physical acuity, which is an interesting theory. It's either that or all them damn vaccines. Don't blast me in the comments. It's just a joke. Either belief you have, I don't give a shit. But yeah, so there's that. And I wonder, so at the end of the movie, he, faces the comic book freaking villain, which makes him such an important character because he prophesized this, and they seem to be kind of like coming after him specifically. So that's the thing that I find to be like underdeveloped. That's what I'm saying. It's like he's the prophesized one, and like the guy even gave him the cell phone and was like, here, this is for you, call it when it's I don't know, it just feels like everything is really centering around him, and I just don't really understand why in the end. He just seems like a random person, and so yeah, it's intriguing, but he's just a comic book artist. There's nothing really there to give me an idea of who he is and why he's relevant and why he's such a big deal. Now, you could argue that because he does state in the movie that maybe we're just all in my dream.
Yeah.
Right? So it is possible that he got turned from the get-go.
Yeah.
That he was on his phone with his kid, and as soon as it hit, his phone died.
Yeah.
But he got the signal. He got the signal with everyone else, but in his head, his phone died, and he was able to survive it and become like this person who was fighting against the red coat, because that guy is important to him. Right. As I've stated before in my own life, and I think all of us narcissists, no, I don't know if I'm a narcissist, but whatever the hell's wrong with me. I've always talked about with you how sometimes I feel like I'm in the fucking Truman Show, because there's so many things around me that I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, is this just one big elaborate prank against me? Right? And it's like this world is his.
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of everything that happens is very like specific to him.
Yeah.
They go with he goes with his new friend Samuel Jackson to his house. Then
Yeah.
they're trying to get to his, kid's house. And along the way he meets people like especially his neighbor like who he knows, right? And they're going from place to place and people are all like trying to give him things
Mm-hmm.
and are like know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets to his kid and they're waiting for him.
Right.
So it's almost like he gets turned at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And this is all just a delusion in his head.
Yeah, I mean, I like that interpretation of it.
Or the second option
Mm-hmm.
is that it's not that. And then at the end, when he blows the thing up, he's, of course, stuck in his mind. And this is, I think, the most obvious interpretation is that he's stuck in his mind and they're just kind of giving him what he wants to keep him a drone, right? Which is kind of the idea of the Matrix to a degree, except for the Matrix makes life kind of suck. Although in the Matrix, they also say like they tried utopian societies, but people rejected it,
Yeah,
right? Because people are like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
That's a great part of that movie.
Yeah.
But my point I'm trying to get to, I apologize, is that I think the interpretation there that I would tack onto that, is it that they are keeping people docile by giving them the fantasy they want, and are all the people that are around him that are like walking in a circle, are they all also living this like fantasy scenario where they get everything they want and survive? And that's why they're keeping that way.
Well, yeah, I do think that's what's going on with everybody.
Right.
Like, I don't think that he's the only one that's having, like, even if, like, whether or not the whole thing is a dream and he was turned at the beginning, or whether it just happens at the end, like, either way, he ends up, like, being part of that hive. So what we see at the end in his fantasy, like, I do think that all the people around him are being shown something, their fantasies or whatever. And I don't think that they have control over their bodies anymore.
Correct.
So
essentially, because I don't know if there is much of a different interpretation of that, he got his happy ending with his kid and he got to go meet up with his friends that he left behind as they left the tags for him to follow. And if we can agree that probably if he got that fate, then everybody else got that fate. So wouldn't this technically be a happy ending?
No, because he doesn't get the happy ending with his son. He gets a happy ending with a dream version of his son. So there is a difference.
But like Inception, who is to tell you what's real and what isn't?
Sure.
But what if I died, a year ago, and you're living in this fantasy with me right now? Would you rather live in the world where I'm dead, or would you rather live with this fantasy me right now?
I'm not saying about what you would rather do, but I'm saying but the reality, like the real thing would be.
But what is reality?
But with him though, like if you have another person, like if you're just talking to yourself the whole time, I don't feel like that's a happy ending, because the whole like joy of having like kids or a lover or whatever is the connection with another person.
I get that, but if you don't know the difference.
Yourself. If you don't know the difference, then I guess there's no.
That's what I'm saying.
But we know the difference. So the audience knows that that's not a happy ending, but for him, it is a happy ending.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's a happy ending for them, because everybody's getting that fantasy probably. And you're not, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe at some point the programming is going to break down and you're going to be like, you're not real, right? Which is a nightmare. But if the fantasy can stay consistent for good and you never know the difference, then what is the difference? I mean, it is, I don't know. I know some people would be like immediately like, no, it's not the same. But you would know. You could be living that fantasy life right now. You could be in the Matrix right now. Sorry to our more unstable listeners who are like, am I? Start cutting things out of their bodies. Don't do that.
No.
Um, I just, yeah, I sit back and I wonder, like, that's why the Matrix always screws with my brain when I watch it, because I am like Cypher,
But
in the
with
first
the
movie. Ignorance is
Matrix,
bliss.
they're also kind of like all in a shared dream together, right?
Yeah,
That's not what's happening
I
here.
know,
So like
I
at
know.
least in the Matrix, it's like even though they're being used as batteries, like
They have choice.
they have choices
Yeah,
within it and they are able to interact with other people. But in this, he's only like in his head, is what we're assuming. Like he's not like his son isn't with him when they're like walking around. Like his son is never there. We don't know. His son could be alive somewhere and not turned.
oh, his son's probably
So
having the same fantasy,
or
walking
no,
right
or a
next to
totally
him.
different one. No, well, I mean, we don't see his son, so I'm saying like he's probably not there with him.
Because as I said, like Samuel Jackson, Elizabeth, no, Isabel Furman, something like that, Esther.
Mm-hmm.
These characters, Patrick Hockstetter, all their names from other movies. um, he, they all dream about the same guy, very Freddy-esque.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying it probably is him turned from the opening.
Yeah.
That seems the more likely thing to me, that makes the most sense and explains everything.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a good interpretation of it. Just from the beginning.
But it is interesting to me, though, that he has to go through things twice.
Mm.
But it's like the hero's journey,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Because
satisfying to him, and
he's a
right,
comic book artist.
and it's
But in
also
his
like
fantasy, his
nobody.
wife dies.
Yes, but like the drama and everything, like he wants to do something important and like save the world because nobody wants to die a mundane, boring death, right? Like,
Sure,
and
but
that's kind of like the fate of these people, even though they're not dead, but they are dead for all intents and
I mean, he
purposes.
might have killed his wife off in his head because he thought there was no reconciliation.
Or that too,
Right?
yeah.
He was too much of a coward to face her, which he kind of talks about.
Yeah.
He talks about that with Sam Jackson, like,
Yeah.
that, or no, I'm sorry, not it's Esther. He
Yeah,
talks
how
to
he
her
spent like
about,
a whole year.
right, but then he was like, she tries to, make it more appealing and
Yeah.
more palatable,
Mm-hmm.
and he just kind of says it how it is.
Yeah.
And I think that could even be, yeah, he's outright saying, like, no, I'm too much of a coward to face her,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm a child. And I decided to go listen to like heavy metal and drink and this stuff, as opposed to like being a responsible person, which he's immature.
Yeah.
And, killing off his wife is easier than trying to reconcile their differences.
Yeah.
And he just wants like his kid and her out of the way.
Yeah.
So killing her off would actually make perfect sense for his happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would feel like, he was the hero and that she died, and like, oh, well, there's like nothing we can do. That's really sad, but I'm going to be the good dad who's there for the kid.
Yeah, because he doesn't really, I mean, he kills her, but like she's turned. So he
Yeah.
he doesn't have a choice.
Actually, after we've talked about this a lot, I quite like this movie even more. I think these interpretations all work perfectly. And I think that you could even go deeper than that. Upon another rewatch, and really look at all the interactions that he has, and to see like how they represent certain things. Like he gets to the first thing and it's like a father-son relationship, right? Where the dad is killed off and the kid needs someone to take him under the wing, right? Like he was killed off in his own story because he left and abandoned the kid. Then the next one they go to is like a bar, which is where he ran away from his family, is to the bar, right? And he was like, and there. So you could go down that path of like the different places he stops, and finally his last stop is home, where he was originally trying to get back to, and that's what leads him to doing what he needs to do. You know what, man? I'm thinking about this movie now and really his journey.
Yeah.
Right? He
Makes
like
sense.
emerges from the tunnels, right? He starts in the tunnels, emerges from the darkness, right? Makes his way to his apartment, which is what like separated him from his family. I don't usually do this, but this is like, yeah, I'm telling you, this is like this like self journey that he's having in his head, that he's creating as he's possessed,
Yeah.
to have this kind of falsified hero's journey
Yeah.
to justify his leaving. And yeah, I'm digging this. It's probably bullshit. I don't know if that was the intention, but the pieces are fitting.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it works really well.
And I need to analyze this movie more. I'm gonna start thinking about all the scenes. You know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I would need to rewatch it with that in mind and like really pay attention to the symbolism of each place and person that he meets and is like interacting with.
Yeah.
But it would be, I mean, so far like things are making a lot of sense with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it. Cell. Give it another look.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I turned around on it, and so can you.
You can.
So, all right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.